It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
We're starting things off by welcoming some new listeners on board, tuning in to WRWH AM 1350 and FM 93.9 out of Cleveland, Georgia, KSGF FM 104.1 out of Springfield, Missouri, and listeners tuning in to WBGS AM 1610 out of Largo, Florida. We are thrilled to have you on board, and I think you're going to really like this show, too. The reason? Not me, that's for sure. No, it's our guests that make our show, and we've got a slate of great ones for you this week. It turns out this is the 125th anniversary of one of America's favorite outdoor magazines, Field and Stream. And a very special edition is on the newsstands now. Colin Kearns, the editor-in-chief of this fine publication, will break down exactly whose stories are gracing the pages of this historic issue. And if I haven't sold you on reading it yet, Colin certainly will. Right after that, we'll dive right into one of those stories when we talk to T. Edward Nickens, whose Maine moose hunt graces the front cover of Field and Stream this month. If you've ever dreamed of hunting moose in the north woods and waters of Maine out of a canoe with a guide, you'll be happy to know Eddie Nickens got a chance to do just that, though the hunt didn't exactly go as planned. From Maine, we'll head to Texas, where Cable Smith, the host of the Lone Star Outdoor Show, will share some great ideas about fishing and hunting trips you can enjoy this winter in a state where the weather is warm and everything is bigger, to include the bass and the redfish. Last but not least, Denise Davila and Marcy Fluent will come on board to tell you about the satellite devices available from Spot, the sort of devices that can get you out of trouble when you need to contact someone for help and there's no cell service available. By the way, we haven't chatted since Christmas weekend, and I've got to tell you, Santa was very, very good to me this year. I got a Henry Long Ranger rifle under the tree for Christmas. It is both modern and classic at the same time. It's got that lever action look, but it is just beautiful from a utilitarian point of view, if that makes any sense. And the thing I love about the Henry Long Ranger is that this is built for hunting, and it comes in modern calibers. You can get it in a .223, a .243, a .308, or you can get it in the caliber I chose, a 6.5 Creedmoor. This rifle, it is rugged, and the fact that it's made in America, that is a huge selling point for me. I can't wait to take it out to the range and into the field this fall for deer and maybe more. Our first guest this week on America Outdoors Radio is a good one. It's Colin Kearns, the editor-in-chief of Field and Stream magazine. And we've got him on the line because in my grubby hands, I am holding the 125th anniversary issue of Field and Stream. I've been diving into it. You have got to buy this. Colin, congratulations on putting together a very special edition.
Thank you very much. You know, with a magazine with as much history and heritage as Field and Stream, this was a daunting task, 125 years worth of history to get just right in one issue. And I don't know if we perfected it, but I'm really pleased with how it came out. This is, of all the issues I've worked on in Field and Stream, there's none I'm more proud of than this one.
You have every right to feel that way. And, the subtitle, Best Stories Ever, absolutely correct. You've got some heavy hitter authors of articles here, and one of them we're going to be talking to in just a couple of minutes. That would be T. Edward Nickens, also known to his friends as Eddie Nickens, about an incredible Maine moose hunt he went on. And if you look at the cover of this issue, you're going to see exactly how that went. Pretty good news, we can say.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what else is in this edition. I guess we'll start off with Fangs and Horns. Now, this is 9 of the most hair-raising tales ever told in Field and Stream. We just spilled the beans on one of them. What are some of the other ones?
Yeah, so as we put this issue together, we kind of came up with 6 different quintessential Field and Stream stories, and we kind of divided those into chapters. And chapter 1, Fangs and Horns, is all about adventure stories. These are stories about big game hunts in North America, Africa, all over the world. And, Eddie's certainly one. His moose hunt certainly qualifies as an adventure, but we really went back into the archives and excerpted some adventures from Robert Ruark and Bob Brister and Warren Page and other iconic writers. It's a really fun chapter.
Speaking of iconic writers, Chapter 2, The Total Outdoorsman, you've got articles from Ted Trueblood and A.J. McLean. What are these stories about?
So these stories are all how-to stories. The Total Outdoorsman at Field & Stream, that's kind of our unofficial mascot. And what that means is it's just someone who can do it all: hunt, fish, shoot, cook over in a Dutch oven. And so these stories are really just all about celebrating those brilliant hunting and fishing tips that we've published over the years, including some of our really short gems called the TAPS tips, which are all 40 words or less, and each one is just a brilliant nugget of wisdom.
Yes, they are. Definitely worth their weight in gold. The next chapter after that, buddy trips. And I have noticed, Colin, that you really like to publish stories about buddy trips, and I think it speaks to most of us and how we do our hunting and fishing, that we do like to go with maybe one specific partner to enjoy these adventures.
Absolutely. There's something to be said for enjoying time in the outdoors alone, but, there's nothing better than going on a hunting trip or a fishing trip with a really close friend, someone, you've known for years, and you two will get along through the highs and lows that come from any outdoor trip. And that's what these stories are all about. Some end in success and many end with, a humble serving of tag soup. But really what these stories are all about are friendships that are forged in the outdoors.
I really like the fact that in the next chapter, This Land, you really dive into conservation. It is a critical issue that gets short shrift from a lot of publications. What are folks going to find there?
Yeah, so this is really just a celebration of the history that Field & Stream has when it comes to conservation. From day one, looking through the archives, it really was inspiring to see how much emphasis the editors placed on conservation and, what advocates they were for implementing game laws or even stuff like the duck stamp. Field & Stream was right at the heart for, getting the duck stamp created. So, this is really just looking back at the legacy of Field & Stream's role in fighting for conservation.
Think About It is another chapter. This one's full of personal essays. What are we going to hear about here?
You're going to hear some pretty heavy stuff here. I would say of all the chapters, this is the one that's probably most unique to Field & Stream, because this is where you've got stereotypically outdoor writers can be a little rough around the edges, a little gruff, but in these stories, they really go deep into their souls and share some really personal stories. None is a better example of that than Bill Heavey's essay called Lilyfish, which is about him going fishing after his infant daughter died. And, it's the most heartbreaking story you're ever going to read, but it's stories that other people connect with. And when we publish stories like that, we always get letters from readers thanking us for sharing stories like that because they can relate to them. So this is a really special chapter in the issue.
Bill Heavey is known much more for his humorous stories than anything else, and you definitely covered that as well with some stories from Bill, and also with another great name from the past pages of Field & Stream, Ed Zern. Love to see that come back in the Just for Laughs section.
Yeah, that was great. It was nice to end on a high note with some humorous tales, and we purposely arranged this issue to end with Bill Heavey and Ed Zern right alongside each other. And we found this classic story from Ed Zern about how to shoot crows, and Bill Heavey is known for his, humility. And so we said, how about you write a story about how to eat crow? And so it was just kind of a nice poetic ending to the issue.
Well, the bottom line is this. If you are looking for a great read about the outdoors, you are going to read some of the best stories ever in the 125th anniversary issue of Field & Stream. It's on the newsstands now. It's going to be there till March. And if folks go to fieldandstream.com, I understand there's some bonus stories that they can read there too. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The sad thing is with the magazine, there was only so many of these great classic stories that we could put in these pages. So we decided to publish a bunch more bonus features on the website, and we're calling them Field & Stream Classics. And if you search for that on the website, you'll find 50 of our best stories from the archives by Robert Ruark, by Eddie Nickens, David Petzel, Bill Heavey, you name it. And it's a great resource to just enjoy some timeless storytelling.
head on down to your local newsstand, your local store, or go online to fieldandstream.com and check out some of the stories there too. Colin, again, fantastic job. Can't wait to read the rest of the stories inside this edition.
Thanks, John. Happy New Year.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
Hunting and fishing are exercises in hope. Before you head into the woods, you hope to tag out on a deer you'll have to field dress. Before you make that first cast, you hope for a big fish to clean and fillet. When your hopes are realized, you'll need a sharp knife. Whether you sharpen that blade on a power sharpener in the shop or a manual sharpener in the field, WorkSharp has the tool for you. Look for WorkSharp products in sporting goods stores near you or online at WorkSharpTools.com.
The Dalles in Oregon is your base camp for fishing fun. Reel in big salmon, tangle with steelhead, bass, and walleye, or wrestle a monster sturgeon to the boat. After the day is done, you'll find a variety of lodging options around town. Need to resupply? We've got you covered with sporting goods stores plus great dining, breweries, wineries, and can't-miss attractions like the Gorge Discovery Center. Plan your fishing getaway today at ExploreTheDalles.com. That's ExploreTheDalles.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is the voice for your public lands, waters, and wildlife. From the Canadian Yukon to the Florida Everglades, we're stepping up to conserve North America's public lands, defend our hunting and fishing traditions, and expand access to the outdoors. Find out how you can get involved at backcountryhunters.org.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio, and if you pick up the 125th anniversary issue of Field and Stream, which is out now, and you really should, by the way, you're going to read some of the best hunting and fishing stories that have been written in a long time. One person who wrote several stories in this edition is T. Edward Nickens. We've got him on the line from his home in North Carolina, and he's got one story in particular that I just absolutely loved. The article is called Living the Dream. Eddie, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be here.
So, Eddie, I think everybody who is a hunter has had this romanticized fantasy of heading to the North Woods of Maine and hunting with a guide in a canoe who's using a rolled birch bark moose call, and then, of course, bagging a trophy moose while you're there. You actually got to go on this adventure. When did this happen?
This was just a magical week in October of last year. Just a fabulous hunt, a fabulous time with great friends. And you're right. It's once in a lifetime at best to be able to get up to Maine and to chase these big old animals on their home turf. It was quite an experience.
Where exactly in Maine were you, and who were you hunting with?
Yeah, I was hunting out of Chandler Lake Lodge, which is up in the big North Maine Woods section, the big timber land of 4 million acres that lies just to the south of the Canadian border. Been going up there for a number of years. Befriended Jason and Sherry Bouchard, who own and operate that lodge. It's just a postcard perfect sporting camp in the big woods of Maine on gorgeous brook trout water. They have awesome ruffed grouse hunting. They have great deer, bear hunting. And every now and then, lightning strikes twice, and there's a chance for Maine moose. Now, I was there with Sherry, who is a registered Maine guide, and she had drawn her second moose tag, which is just practically unheard of. She drew her first 20-some years ago, bagged the bull. Last year, she pulled another, and you're allowed to have one associate hunter with your permit. So she'd already been successful once, asked me to come up if I'd be interested in hunting with her, and we did it, and believe it or not, we pulled it off.
And I presume she's going to be on your Christmas card list for the rest of your life, isn't she?
No doubt. No doubt.
Well, let's talk about the daily routine. This is a 5-day hunt. What were you doing the first 4 days? You literally were in the canoe and having the guides blow the birch bark call. Tell me a little bit more about what each day looked like.
So in that big North Woods country, it's big industrial timberlands, huge industrial timberlands. So there's roads, there's logging trails. When I mean roads, there's gravel logging roads sort of scored throughout that region. And that's how a lot of folks hunt up there. They scout by the roads. They try to figure the animals out by driving the road and glassing and scouting and calling. But, you know, forever I had wanted to do this out of a canoe. I love paddling a canoe, and I wanted to get as far off the roads as possible and get as deep in the woods as possible and maybe make this as hard on me as possible. So we got up from the lodge. We got in the truck. We drove 30 minutes, hour and a half, depending on the day, threw some canoes into a small stream, a small seep of dead water, and paddled for hour and a half in the dark. It was myself and Sherry, Peter Cook, another guide, and then the photographer Tom Folks. And we tried to get back in the back of beyond, you know, where we could kind of let those woods let it happen. Didn't really work out that way, but that was the dream. That was the plan, and we were pretty determined, at least for most of that hunt, to get it done out of a canoe.
So you did the canoe thing, and I'm sure it was fabulous, but your last day is day 5, and you had to change tactics. Tell me what you did and tell me how it turned out.
We did. It was extremely warm. I remember one night at midnight, it was 70 degrees and a warm rain, and that's what we had to contend with for the first three and a half days. The bulls were not sounding off. The cows weren't. We were seeing very few animals. They were just kind of hunkered down. So we knew we were going to have to change strategies a little bit. Still was not willing to do this from a road necessarily. So we decided to trade a canoe paddle for hiking boots, and we started stomping through some of the swamps, doing some still hunting off the highway, off the roads, deep into the woods, trying to make it happen. And, you know, we'd found very few animals, very few reports of other guides moving moose. But then that one midday, we came out of this just horrendous, awful, garish cedar swamp up to a ridge, an old logging road that had grown up in tall reeds. And, I mean, it was cratered with moose beds. We'd found where they'd been hanging out laughing at us for 3 days. That's right. For sure.
So what happens next?
So on that day, we found the moose beds. We had time to hunt. Still raining. But we knew we were right in the middle of where we wanted to be. So we were casting about to try to find a place to sit up, to call, and the wind shifted on us. It was just like the front came through that moment. And there's this interesting exchange between Peter and I when we both knew we had to get out of there. And he was on my case. We got to get out because we're going to scent foul all those beds, and we wanted to come back the next day if we needed to. But I was loath to leave. we were right in the middle of everything we've been looking for. But I knew it was the right thing to do. So we took your tail, got down off that ridge, got back down to logging road to the truck, and left that place for the next morning. I'm glad we did, because when it worked out pretty big time.
So the next morning, you go back and you have a very, very close encounter with the moose and a couple of guides looking at you like, are you going to pull the trigger?
Yeah, we were hiking in, and we marked the place that we wanted to sit and call down this slope to where all these beds were scattered along this ridge. So we were making our way in the dark, and Sherry heard a bull. And Peter and I didn't hear it, so we sort of kept walking. And there's a funny exchange about her kind of knocking us on the head. So we'd stop moving and listen to this one bull close, like super close. And then when it happened and we knew he was coming in, we just sort of scrambled. And they sort of dove off one side of the ridge. I scrambled to the other side, found a great place to sit. So when the animals came in, first a younger bull and then the larger one that I ended up shooting, I mean, we were separated by just a bit, but we each had to sort of make our own decisions about what was getting ready to happen. And it was crazy. I mean, these animals were close. They were 15, 20 yards. First one ran off to my right, and then the one that I wound up getting the closest to came into view, and I was startled by what I saw. And evidently, I did a little reading, a little internet research later and found out this is a thing. But he had been tearing up the brush and the saplings so violently that, honestly, he had what I described as this giant salad on his head from his shoulders to the tip of his nose. It was a mass of shrubs and cucumber vine and grass. And the thing was huge. I couldn't even see his antlers. Couldn't even see his ears. And I just didn't know. I really didn't know what to think. Sitting here looking at this animal, it looked like it came out of Dr. Seuss. But ultimately, shook his head a little bit, and a few antler tips poked through, and I knew this was now or never, and we let her go. But I came home and started looking up moose videos, and there's some pretty funny videos on the internet about moose that just have their heads completely shrouded in brush from tearing up during the rut.
Well, Eddie, definitely the main moose hunt of a lifetime indeed. The place to go, folks, is the Chandler Lake Lodge if you want to find out about trying to get a moose hunt of your own up there, or maybe some other Maine adventure. And if you want to read more about this story and check out some of the great photos that are in it too, just pick up the 125th anniversary issue of Field and Stream and check out the article, Living the Dream. That is Eddie Nicken's story of his Maine moose hunt. Eddie, thanks for sharing it with our listeners today on America Outdoors Radio.
And always a pleasure.
Ready to step up to a quality-built rifle or shotgun that's a true classic? Check out Henry Repeating Arms, American-made. There's over 200 models to choose from in a variety of finishes and calibers for hunters and target shooters. Many of these are lever-action models with a look right out of the Old West. Don't be deceived, though. Henry Repeating Arms are modern, rugged, accurate, reliable, and have a lifetime guarantee. Find out more and order a free catalog today at henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com.
Immerse yourself in a complete Alaska wilderness experience through Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Up to 6 of you will spend a week in a beautiful waterfront log home in a secluded cove. Every day is a new adventure. Go on a guided fishing trip or haul in a bounty of shrimp and crab. Visit a Native American village where totem poles are carved. Go on a whale or bear watching trip and return back to your very own place at the end of the day. Find out more about the Alaska Wilderness Experience at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz, and I've got a great guest for you. His name is Cable Smith. He is the host of Lone Star Outdoors. It's heard on 20 stations every week in the Lone Star state of Texas, and he covers the outdoor scene there better than just about anybody. Cable, it is so wonderful to have you on the air.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, my friend. Happy New Year to you.
Oh, Happy New Year indeed, and good riddance to 2020. Before we get into things to do in the state of Texas during the winter months, let's tell our listeners a little bit about Lone Star Outdoors. What do you cover on your show, and how long is it every week?
Oh, it's an hour on the radio, and then the podcast subsequently is usually about like an hour and a half. It's one of the unfortunate realities is having to cut a bunch of stuff out, but it's all-encompassing, hunting, fishing, although it's probably more like 80% hunting, 20% fishing, and just the outdoor lifestyle in general. I hunt everything from whitetails in Texas to about to leave for a Cape Buffalo hunt in South Africa in February, so nothing too big, nothing too small. Waterfowl is probably my favorite, to be honest. I love hunting with dogs. So a little bit about myself. I've been doing it about 10 years or so and full-time, and I honestly can't imagine doing anything else.
I'll tell you one thing I love about your show is the music I get to hear. You always have some great country music as you kick off your show, and it varies every single week, too.
Yes, sir. We have a really unique music scene in Texas, and we're very proud of that. And a lot of these guys are just like you and I and enjoy spending time at deer camp or, chasing largemouth bass when opportunity presents itself. So I like to have them here in the studio and talk about their hunting and fishing exploits, and then obviously I make them bring a guitar, and we get to listen to some great music.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into the outdoor scene in Texas during the months of January and February. Now, there's a lot of folks listening today that are in some northern state that would love the idea of coming down to sunny Texas to do maybe some saltwater fishing on the Gulf Coast. What's one species in particular you'd recommend at this time of year, and where would you target them?
Oh, yeah. Redfish are great this time of year. They are actually starting to come back in from spawning. So back into the bays and estuaries. Usually cold weather months are great for getting big bull reds. Port O'Connor is a great fishery, fishing off of the jetties, either in a boat or you can just fish off the jetties, cut bait, ladyfish, jackfish seem to always work great for those big redfish.
When you watch television, you always see catch and release as the norm for redfish, but do a lot of folks keep them? And if so, how do they eat?
Oh my gosh, they are phenomenal. Redfish on the half shell, you leave the scales on the fillet and just cook them scale side down on a grill. Oof, they're tough to beat. Now the big ones, I think you can keep one over, don't quote me on that, but it's like 35 or 37 inches, something like that. But I don't know why you'd want to be frank. You actually get a tag on your license as your one oversized redfish. But now since everyone does replica mounts instead of actually, killing the fish, I don't see any reason to keep anything that, a big fish. Breeders aren't eaters, right?
I agree completely. Let's turn to the freshwater. When it comes to Texas, especially in the winter, I think of two species, crappie and bass. Which is the most popular, or is there something else that people are after this time of year?
Oh my gosh, bass is king in Texas. We like big bucks and big bass down here, largemouth bass. People say us and probably Florida have the best largemouth fisheries, and we're just a little bit early in January for the spawn, so you're going to have to go a bit deeper, target submerged vegetation, stumps. If you've got trees, that's even better, and like 10 to 12 feet, maybe even 15. But they're putting on the feed sacks, so the big girls, those mature breeding fish that you want to target, that you want to tell your buddies about. I caught this 8-pounder, this 10-pounder. They're starting to feed voraciously, so now is a great time to get them as they're heading into their pre-spawn habits.
It's amazing when you talk 8 and 10 pounders living up in the Northwest. Basically, us northern bass anglers, we get a 4 or 5 pound bass. We get excited. You get a 4 or 5 pound bass, you're like, it's all right.
I still get excited. I did catch a 10.23 2 years ago, and I have not been that mad at bass ever since then. I fished all the time. I think I've gone like 5 times since then. It spoiled me.
I believe it.
Like my life's goal was always to catch a bigger one than my dad had caught, and he's got like an 8.7 he caught on Lake Fork.
Right.
So once I passed him, I was like, well, Dad, let me know when you catch one bigger, and I'll get back after it.
Well, I'm jealous already just listening to this. Let's turn our attention to hunting. And again, folks, you're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Cable Smith. He's the host of Lone Star Outdoors, a weekly radio show heard across the state of Texas on 20 different stations. If you go to LoneStarOutdoorsShow.com, you can find a complete station lineup. You mentioned you love bird hunting. You mentioned you love bird dogs. You mentioned you love waterfowl. How long does the waterfowl season go in Texas? I'm guessing pretty long.
Yeah, so the Central Flyway kind of dictates the framework. Texas has adopted the latest ending date to a season we've ever had. Essentially runs through the last weekend of January, and that's as late as we can legally go. So I think January 31st is the actual end for us. We usually have a 2-week split. This year we only had a 5-day split because we started the season later. People are always complaining about, well, it just doesn't get cold enough in Texas until late January, certainly December, January. I'll be honest, this is the worst duck season I've ever had. We just haven't had major cold fronts. I've got buddies that are going up to Kansas to wear the mallards out every weekend, and this is the first year I actually paid a significant amount of money to get on a duck lease, and we shot limits opening day, and then every hunt since then it's been significantly worse.
No.
God, we're at the tail end of the Central Flyway, so if we don't get any cold weather, it's bad news for Texas hunters.
Do you have a late snow goose season that goes after January, or maybe a season for specs?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We hammer them during conservation season for snow geese. No plugs, no limits, and people are like, wow, you're just going out there killing. No, you're doing God's work. It's conservation. They're tearing up the tundra that they need to thrive, their breeding grounds, and they're destroying it.
Right.
And they're reproducing at a rate that's not sustainable for that habitat to survive. So that's why we are allowed to do that. And it makes for a lot of fun, a lot of shooting. Usually it's in, ag fields. And, it's certainly worth doing if anyone ever gets the opportunity to go on a conservation snow goose hunt.
Last but not least, let's talk about non-bird hunting. What kind of hunting is available to hunters in Texas during the month of January and the month of February?
Well, there's always feral hogs. That never ends, and there's no real limitations. If you want to use spotlight, you want to use thermal, you want to trap them, we just want them gone, essentially. And we're never going to win that war. So it's fun for hunters, maybe not so much for landowners that are bearing the brunt of the destruction these things cause. But then we've got a great exotic hunting community industry here in Texas, and I always like to chase black buck and axis deer. Axis deer probably are going to be in velvet right now, so might have to wait till later in the spring to get after them, but that's phenomenal venison. And, there's a list of exotics to choose from. I mean, there's anything for any budget to any species you can imagine. Essentially, we probably have it here in Texas.
Question for you. You have an animal down there that we don't have in most of the rest of the United States, the javelina. Now, it looks like a little pig. Is that open this time of year, and how popular of a sport is that?
Yeah, so actually we're going to say javelina in Texas, and you can hunt them year-round, but you're only allowed 2 of them per year, so you have to take that into consideration. But people say they're not great eating. I've actually kept one and turned it into tamales. It was very good. I think it's one of those things that just takes a little more work to make it edible, but they're actually called the, collared peccary is their, scientific name. And they're an interesting little animal. If you get close to them, they give you a warning. They chomp. They have cutters, just like big feral hogs, and they'll start chomping and kind of let you know, hey, you're too close. They have terrible eyesight, so you can spot and stalk them with a bow, which is a lot of fun.
Wow.
But you've always got to play the wind because their nose will give you up in a heartbeat.
Interesting stuff, and obviously, folks, there is a lot going on in the Lone Star State this winter, and for that matter, just about every month when it comes to the outdoors in Texas. If you want to find out more, you can go to LoneStarOutdoorShow.com. Again, check out the stations and airtimes that Cable has available, and if you live in Texas or you're driving through, be sure to tune in one of those stations and catch his show. Cable, thanks for breaking down the winter outdoors opportunities in the Lone Star State for our listeners today on America Outdoors Radio.
All right, John, thanks again.
This portion of the show was brought to you by our friends at WorkSharp. They're the fine folks out of Ashland, Oregon, who make knife and tool sharpeners that you can use, whether you're hunting or fishing or camping, or maybe in your shop, maybe in your kitchen, for all of the knives and tools you need sharpened every day when you work and play. WorkSharp tools can be found online at worksharptools.com, or you can find them in sporting goods stores and hardware stores all over our great nation. Just look for WorkSharp products to sharpen your knives and your tools, because nothing is worse than trying to get the job done right with a dull blade.
Campers, adventure seekers, hunters, and foodies. No matter the lifestyle, we can all agree on one thing. Great food and great people are worth remembering. At Camp Chef, we don't just make grills. We create each product knowing that a warm meal is always better when it's shared with those we love. Learn more about Camp Chef grills, smokers, and portable cooking equipment at campchef.com. That's campchef.com for a better way to cook outdoors.
Our American spirit is alive and strong. And while we're all going through these unprecedented historical times, we can face these challenges together. Hello, I'm Mark Hemstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Although we may wear face masks and practice social distancing, there are no restrictions on making travel memories for business or pleasure. Taking care of our Shiloh guests and employees is the very essence of what we do. At Shiloh Inns, we're open and ready to welcome you to a clean, safe home away from home. You'll find extra cleaning and sanitizing protocols in place for the safety of our guests and employees. At Shiloh Inns, we offer many free amenities like free Wi-Fi, and even the kids stay free. So book your next stay with confidence at shilohins.com or call 1-800-222-2244. Shiloh Inns, affordable excellence, American family-owned and proud of it.
The election is over, and this is not another political ad. But with the change in president, there is uncertainty. Uncertainty in the market. Will it be up or will it be down? Uncertainty on how the new administration will handle taxes for your retirement. A new report states that the Biden administration may take away key tax benefits to traditional retirement plans. But what if there was a better way? A way to save for retirement tax-free? We can help business owners, freelancers, and regular working folks get on track with their retirement without risk and without taxes. For more information, get your no-cost, tax-free retirement income strategy guide now by calling 888-585-1615. That's 888-585-1615. Find out how sound investment principles can give you a retirement where you eliminate the spend down of your savings and create more income for your retirement tax-free. Call today and get the free guide, 888-585-1615. That's 888-585-1615. Call now, 888-585-1615.
Next up on America Outdoors Radio, it's a brand new year. You are probably planning some brand new adventures, and some of them might be way out of the way, like beyond cell phone range. If so, you're going to want to have something from Spot. They make some fantastic satellite messaging and communications tools. And with us here to tell you more about Spot products is Denise Davila. She's the Corporate Communications Manager, and Marcy Fluitt, the Director of Marketing for Spot. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Denise, we're going to start off with you about the importance of a Spot product, exactly how they work, and why they're superior to that cell phone that most folks rely on.
Yes. So as you know, we venture outdoors, and frequently that includes trips that are off the grid. And you don't really have to go very far to see your cell phone go from 4 bars to none. Often you take a trip into the mountains and your cell phone service disappears immediately. So with Spot, the importance of our product is you're going to have a reliable form of satellite connectivity. This isn't powered through cell phone networks or traditional landlines. It's powered through satellite technology. So what's wonderful about it is that it's always reliable. It's always going to be on, and regardless kind of like of where you venture, you're going to have that connectivity or that lifeline, that option for an SOS function should you need it if you encounter an emergency situation while you're hiking or fishing or on a snowmobile or skidoo or whatever passion your outdoor passion might be. You have that line of communication should you need it.
Another group of people who probably really could use these Spot devices are offshore fishermen who love to go after, whether it be Dorado or marlin or tuna. Once you get offshore a few miles, you're out of cell phone range, but these products are going to work great, aren't they?
Within the work that I do, I speak to so many of the people that we aid with our SOS function on a daily basis. I can't tell you how many of them are actually offshore rescues. Sometimes there's engine failure issues. That's probably, I would say, the one that's most frequent that we hear and we see the most is people experiencing some kind of mechanical failure issue when they're offshore. And so if you don't have that line of communication to call a sea tow or to call the Coast Guard to come and help you out, you might be in a really precarious situation. So that's definitely one that's very popular for us in terms of rescues that we do. But, when we're in, say, specifically like Colorado, of course, hiking and mountain sports is also a top category for us in terms of where we see SOS activations.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you get hurt or whether you're lost, I could definitely see people pushing that SOS on your Spot devices. Let's pivot to you, Marcy, the Director of Marketing. Let's talk about 3 of the items you have. Now, one of them you were kind enough to send my way to test out, the Spot Gen 4. It's a satellite GPS messenger. Pretty ingenious little device that I'm playing with here. Tell our listeners more about it.
Yeah, so it's the satellite GPS communicator. It has several functions. Tracking is one, and you can kind of pick the pre-selected interval that you want to track your point. And as you move, the Gen 4 is going to start tracking upon movement, and then if movement is stopped, there's a way to kind of conserve the battery as well. And, the device is really important to be able to check in if you just need to say, hey, I've made it to my destination, to the campground or to the hunting site, and you just want to send a quick check-in message. You can do that to just send it to family, friends, so they have more peace of mind that you've actually made it to where you need to be. And then having the GPS location and your coordinates go along with those messages that are sent is definitely a way to see, your physical location. Utilizing our mapping feature as well, you can share your journeys and your trips with your friends and family if they want to keep an eye on that shared view and to kind of see where you're tracking along your adventure, whatever it may be. And then, of course, the SOS button for emergency situations. If you're in a life or death situation and you need the local search and rescue dispatch to your GPS coordinates, that's when you would want to push the SOS button. That's going to be very precise in terms of your location when someone has to go out and actually rescue you.
I also noticed that you have kind of an emergency one where it just goes out to your contacts. And you can preload several contacts. In my case, I preloaded family members in there where it basically says, I'm in trouble, I need some help, but it doesn't necessarily go to the emergency responders at that point.
Absolutely. And that's the benefit of, having the variation of the type of emergency, or even just if you needed help, you can designate who you want that message to go out to. And it's, like I said, it's going to send your GPS coordinates along with those messages as well. And so anyone, if they even needed to call a local authority, maybe it's not search and rescue, but it's something else to get you supplies or something else that you may have needed. They have those coordinates as well when you send that help message or that check-in message to really a number of contacts, either via SMS or an email.
All right. Now, we have to talk about the SpotX. It's a two-way satellite messenger, definitely a step up from the Gen 4. Why don't you tell us how this differs?
Yeah, so you can send and receive messages. So just like, the Gen 4, you're only sending the message. With the SpotX, you've got the benefit of being able to send and receive messages with your own unique mobile number. Someone else on the outside that has it can also initiate the communication to you if they just wanted to check in and see how your trip is going. You can send it to a number of contacts, which can also be preloaded, as well as 16 predetermined messages. So if you don't want to have to type while you're out and about, you can set up your SpotX to have these predefined messages that can go out with just a couple clicks of your SpotX. And then really the variation of being able to also use it with pairing it to your smartphone. If you prefer that interface to be able to message, you can use the SpotX app to also send and receive your messages and basically perform the same functions that the sole device would be performing. If you just wanted to use that, you could as well, the SpotX in of itself, or pair it along with your smartphone.
We are running out of time, but one more item I want to mention, the Spot Trace. This is actually a satellite tracking device, and it's meant to put on your valuables, things like your boat or your vehicle or your snowmobile, and you will instantly receive a text or an email when movement is detected, and you can follow exactly where that item is going, and that'll come in really handy for the police if somebody has stolen something of yours like your boat, vehicle, or snowmobile. So, last question back to you, Denise. Obviously, you're going to have a service plan to go with these items. What's the website folks can go to A, find out how to buy these items, and B, check out the service plans that go with them?
Yes, you can go on to findmespot.com, and there you can learn more about our products. And we also have a variety of service plans for each of our products. So if you're a more seasonal outdoorsman, where the majority of what you're doing takes place, say, during the winter months, you can sign up for a flex plan. So we do have kind of options for you based on the level of activity. Whereas maybe you want to keep track of your assets year long, you would maybe want to sign up for a more robust plan. But, we buy all these expensive toys. You want to keep track of them. You want to make sure where they are, where they're going at all times. So the Trace is definitely a good device that helps people do that.
And I think even using them all together too, all three of the devices, they're all flexible in terms of the plan that you can get, starting at $11.95 a month. So it really gives you the flexibility of utilizing all of the Spot products if you have the need.
All right, the website to go to again is findmespot.com. Check out the Spot Generation 4 satellite GPS messenger, the Spot X two-way satellite messenger, and the Spot Trace, which is a satellite tracking device. The website, one more time, findmespot.com. Get one of these for your adventures that take you way out beyond cell phone range. Marcy, Denise, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio. Before we go today, I want to send a fond farewell to Ken Taylor. He's the host of Outdoor Guys Radio, and unfortunately, he hung up his microphone. Some of you that are tuning in today on KSGF FM 104.1 out of Springfield, Missouri, and WBGS AM 1610 out of Largo, Florida, got to hear Ken for years, and he was a wonderful voice on the airwaves, covering fishing and hunting throughout not just the Midwest, but throughout the nation as well. I got to spend some time with him at Range Day at SHOT Show last year. Really enjoyed his company. We have corresponded several times over the years, trying to help each other succeed in our endeavors and make our individual radio shows better. I am so sorry to see him go because we need as many voices as possible on the airwaves advocating for hunting, for fishing, for conservation, and outdoor recreation. I don't want to lose anybody who's talking about these things that is as responsible as Ken is. And I've got an open invitation for any of you who are interested in becoming a radio broadcaster or maybe starting a podcast about any of these topics we just mentioned. Get a hold of me. You can do so through my website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Just shoot me an email or contact me through Facebook at America Outdoors Radio. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you and help you get started so you too can share the outdoors with listeners and inspire them to get outside too. It's time to go, but here's hoping you are blessed in the days ahead, and here's hoping you get to spend some time fishing, hunting, or having fun out there. After all, it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.